Hello from Netherlands. It is late Saturday night, almost Sunday, on January 10th, 2026. So Masako and I are still in the Netherlands. We are with Catherine Austin Fitz. I'm still in Catherine's studio. It's an awesome studio. Masako's working in the other room, and Catherine is too. So very interesting things going on. Basically, my producer, Masako, told me over dinner I should do a podcast on Wikipedia. So I think I will. Actually, I worked all day to publish something that I think is important, but there was some interruptions and I was unable to do it. Actually, one thing that we did that was interesting, that was not an interruption, but we took about 4 hours and we went to a horse show with the Friesian horses, Dutch Friesian horses. They're beautiful black horses, and they're prancing. Those the horses that keep their head down like they're a knight on the chessboard, those horses. And I asked one Friesian lady, and she said, actually, we haven't had that here in 5 years or 6 years because it hasn't snowed here. But she said, they just had it, and that's why there were so many people there today. And I asked, how do they teach the horses to prance, right? That's those really beautiful black horses, and they prance like kind of look like Michael Jackson or something. And she said, well, actually, the reason that they're taught to prance like that is because if they gallop, they'll work up a sweat and get cold. And, these are workhorses. And this is a cold place, man. There's a lot of ice out there today. And one lady fell, actually. So, I mean, this is a cold place. And if your workhorses are galloping through the snow instead of prancing through, the prancing keeps their body heat down and keeps their struggles down getting through the snow. Very interesting, huh? I didn't know that until she told me. And the other Friesians are like, of course. They're very friendly. Actually, it was interesting. Something interesting happened today. I was at it was like a prancing races, basically. It was really cool. They were racing two horses at a time, and went on for some hours. And at one point, there were a lot of us there over the fence, looking at the horses coming. And one lady said, she was talking with Masako, and I mentioned to a Friesian guy, I said, "Oh, thank you for inviting us." He was the one that inviting us. And he pointed to this woman who was talking to Masako, and he said, "No, she invited us." I said, "Oh, I didn't know who you are, but thank you." And she said, "Actually, I didn't invite you. He invited me." So there was this other Friesian guy invited her, who told my friend, who told me, who told Masako and Catherine, and we all went. So it was interesting. So one man none of us knew told one woman, who told my Friesian friend, who told me, who told Masako and Catherine. What I was getting to with that is sharing information it's amazing how he ended up getting actually a whole carload of people to show up with just one. It spreads. So keep that in mind as you share information. It can spread quite quickly and cause action. We all showed up to the thing that we didn't even know was going to happen. Anyway, now what the long-haired general told me, Masako, today over dinner, she said, you need to do a podcast on Wikipedia. So I've talked about that many times. And she said, no, you need to do a better job. When the long-haired general says that, I pay attention. And so here's the bottom line. So recently I talked again with some interesting people about Taiwan on a podcast. And like often happens, when I said, Taiwan was actually never part of China. There's the normal, one guy was shaking his head, and I'm like, you're shaking your head, it's true. And, it was never part of Formosa. Let's say Taiwan was never part of China. It just wasn't. It just did not happen. Now, I know everybody knows, and all the people with the PhDs and all that know. How many people with PhDs told us to take the death jab, right? Okay. Yeah, not to go into that. But at the end of the day, it never was. So I've gotten to the point. If you ever see me bet somebody, you should put your money with the way I bet, because I don't bet my money. I just don't. But if I'm making you a bet, you done lost your money if you take the bet, right? And so, which is not often that I bet. I don't actually like to do that, but it just doesn't feel right. But it's a way of actually putting people on the spot. That's why I do it. I don't do it for money. I do it to say, okay, put your money where your mouth is. instead of shaking your head like, I know what I'm talking about. I'm like, okay, let's play. I'll bet you $10,000, right? I bet you $10,000. And that's what I said, that you can't prove it, right? Not that I'm going to prove it, but that you can't prove it, because the onus is on you to prove it, right? I've done this many times on this, right? And I said, actually, let's change that. Not $10,000. Let's do 2 ounces of gold, right? Let's bet 2 ounces of gold. Let's do a gold standard bet here. And anyway, I'll bet. I mean, this isn't verbatim our conversation, but it's the tenor and the aim, right? And so I said, you need to prove it. And he, again, doubling down. Anyway, let me get a sip of water here. It is very dry. Today out there, it was very dry. And we've been swilling the water. But so in any case, I said, prove it, So and one of the guys on the show messaged me, I think yesterday, and he's sending me some links. And first of all, I said, listen, this is nothing. It's like nothing. And I'm very, very busy. Like, get to the point. I want source documents. He sent me a Wikipedia link. And, it's like a joke around me. If somebody sends me a Wikipedia link to settle something, it's over. It is settled. If you send me a Wikipedia link to like settle or discuss something serious, especially something deeply politically serious where trillions of dollars and war is at stake, and you send a Wikipedia link, I'm just like, it's over. The conversation's done, because I don't have time for that. Wikipedia is a joke, right? Now, the supplied answer that people will say is that, but they cite their sources, right? They always say that. They'll, just like when I say, Joe Rogan's a dopehead, why are you watching him? They'll say, but he has great guests. That's called a supplied answer. An information war, that's called a supplied answer. Again, if I say, if China is pushing drugs out there all over the place and pushing cannabis and fentanyl and all these different things, meth or whatever it is, people will say they're getting even for the opium wars, right? And so those are what's called supplied answer. If you hear so many people doing the same answer over and over and over, that's a brainwashing technique, actually, where the answer is inserted into your ear or your eyes and it comes out of your mouth. And then other people keep repeating it. China's doing this because of the opium wars, right? Okay. And everybody knows. Anytime you hear everybody knows, okay, that's pretty much wrapping up the conversation, because I don't have time, because I'm looking for people that have very clean thinking processes, that think logically and know how to actually research, because I'm not going to get into a day-long conversation with somebody when minutes count, right? There's serious people that I've been on the phone with today about all kinds of very serious things, and I'm not going to argue about how Wikipedia is not a serious source, and actually that's the end of our conversation, right? And so, but here's the thing. This is the one thing Masako, the long-haired general, insists that I come on and say. I'm doing it, long-haired general, if you're hearing me. And so, and this is like a hostage video, right? So is that here's how it sets up. And I've seen this actually happen. So in anything that's highly political, you can't use Wikipedia for. If there's huge money involved or highly political, like, death jabs, of course, or if you're looking at, what are the species of roses, that's probably pretty safe. You can probably, that's probably pretty safe. If you're looking, what's the birthday of Albert Einstein, that's probably pretty safe. I don't see any problems with Wikipedia on that. But anything political, especially deeply political, religious, deals with huge money or any of those things, obviously shouldn't be using Wikipedia. But here's how it's set up, right? And here's what happens. Let's say it's something big, like Taiwan, which is we're talking war, right? We're talking trillions of dollars at stake and massive numbers of lives. So the reason I mentioned the dollars before the lives is because it's nothing to put a few $1,000,000 into an information war, right? When you're talking this level of stuff, that is pocket dust. Even 50 million or 100 million is really pocket dust on the scale of things. And so, and it's very easy. Like, I knew an editor for Wikipedia that lived in Hong Kong, and I watched him editing. I'm like, so you can just like edit it right now? Like, like anything. He had complete privileges. He could edit all. I'm like, how'd you get that? And it's like, and it was just really amazing. In other words, he could edit it because he's a trusted guy. I'm like, how'd you get like to be the trusted guy? He's not there's others, but because Wikipedia is a big ecosystem, and you have to have people. Anyway, the point is there are trusted guys, and money talks, right? I mean, with these, all Wikipedia needs, your information operators need to know is, well, who's editing. And okay, boom. That's one way to get an in. There's many others as well, right? They could just be a big donor to Wikipedia. Give them, I don't know, $10 million. You're going to have executive privileges, I guarantee you, right? So I mean, I shouldn't say that because I don't know that would be true. Wikipedia may say that's completely false and say you should apologize. So in advance, I'll apologize. I don't know that you would do that. I'm just saying that's how newspapers are bought, right? That's how this is the oldest game in the book, or people just start newspapers, right? And so here's how it happens. Citing your sources, right? You seed articles like in some big magazines or newspapers or whatever, or you have it on some channel that you actually own, or you just own the editor or the journalist or whatever, and you just write it, and then you cite it. It takes like hours, literally hours. Like I said to my friend, I knew him, and I spent considerable hours with him, but it's not like I knew him for years. I only knew him during that time in Hong Kong. But I said, so theoretically, you could just set up a blog and cite your own blog. And he's like, yep, pretty much. So I'm like, wow. So you've got one-stop shopping here. How many people have this executive level editing? And, I don't know what the answer is. I don't remember. But the point is, even before that, I knew Wikipedia. I mean, it really doesn't take much, experience in the world to realize you just can't trust it, because they'll create the sources and then cite them. Where did I actually see this happen? One of the things I like to refer to is things that I actually lived, right? Now, you shouldn't talk about yourself, but yourself is the instances that you know the best, right? So when I was going against some generals in the Afghan war, Afghanistan, against General McChrystal and General Menard, who both got fired later, right? Yeah. Again, my intuition. Look up the article. Michael Yon Deemed Prophetic, I think is the name of it. It was an amazing article about what happened. Like I said, that guy should be fired. That guy should be fired. That guy should move to this position. And that guy should move to that position. It was basically McChrystal should be fired. Menard should be fired. And Petraeus should take McChrystal's position. And the Marine General Mattis should take Petraeus' position, I think is what I said, right? Which was a very, that's 1 in 10,000, because you're basically demoting Petraeus from CENTCOM to put him over in charge of the Afghan war, and you're putting, I think it was Mattis, over in Petraeus' position, I think is what I said should be done. Anyway, what I published and was saying on interviews, it actually happened, but it's not the way the military actually works. And that's why a lot of people in the military and whatnot were saying that can never happen. That should not happen. I'm like, maybe it shouldn't happen. And maybe normally it would not happen with the military, but I'm just telling you what I think should happen. And then it did. Right. And so those two generals were fired because of my work, not because of Michael Hastings with McChrystal. Right. But what I'm getting to is that was highly political. And there was a lot of angry people. So people were seeding articles in some of those blogs. And actually, some of the people that met with Bush sitting at the table in Iraq, during the Iraq War, and I was the only one that refused to go. And my readership was probably 10 times bigger than the next 10 independent people. And I'm not exaggerating. That's going to be roughly in the right direction anyway. It wasn't like there's anything close, right? The next probably 10 together, I was probably 10 times bigger on actual influence in the wars, because I was spending so much time in combat, right? I was spending so much time on the ground. I had my finger on the pulse, both pulses, right? I mean, I really had a feel for the battleground in Iraq and Afghanistan, because I spent 4 years. I spent 2 in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan. I'm going back and forth between the wars, and I went over to the Philippines to look at that one. I went to fighting in Thailand and then back to fighting in Afghanistan. I can feel it when I'm on the ground now. At some point you develop a sense for it. And I did. And I was becoming increasingly accurate. The more that time went on, the more accurate I became on my, hit to miss, and became incredibly good, actually. And so that doesn't sit well with some people, that I was actually clearly becoming very, let's say the robot was coming alive more and more. And not that I was a robot, but you know what I'm saying. And so basically this guy that came from out of the blue is suddenly showing up, CNN and Fox and all that. That was pretty easy. And all the bloggers, because I was on the ground. But then they started to attack me. And how did they do it? One of the ways they did it was Wikipedia. So they would seed those articles, and then they would cite those articles in the article about me on Wikipedia. So at one point I said, oh, that was serious defamation, not just minor. It was like major league defamation. It was saying stuff that was, I don't remember what it was, but it was pretty serious. And I screenshotted it, of course, because I was like sent to my lawyer. I'm like, okay, line it up. Let's go to bat. Let's sue him for defamation, right? Because this is quite clear, quite obvious, and quite bad for me and can hurt me, actually, right? And so I actually published that. I'm like, I'm considering suing Wikipedia, and they didn't know. I mean, we were really getting ready to do it. I wasn't like, we were lining up the shot, and then they changed the story. They actually took down those things that were clearly just some guy put it up, and then they cited it. And somehow, within their ecosystems, they knew who was editing probably, and any case. And by the way, so many people, when I said, I'm considering suing Wikipedia, you could find what I said because it'll be online. And they're like, you can't sue Wikipedia. And I'm like, oh, watch me. Watch me, Rambo. Yeah, let's see. Let's see how far that goes, because it's about that thing's about to leave the barrel, And but then they changed it wisely, because it would have been a lawsuit, and we would have been citing what they did, and we would have been going after the other people, because that was that was quite serious. I mean, you could lose your house for that stuff. And the people that were like, you can't sue Wikipedia, I'm like, I don't know what planet you come from. Absolutely you can, and absolutely we're getting ready to do it. But anyway, more importantly, you learn a lot when you're the one in the arena. And I was in the arena on that Wikipedia thing. So I was like, wow, that was amazing. They set it up, did some articles, cited the articles very quickly, and there you go. So now you see it all the time. You'll see when you look at the sources that people send you, which I don't look at Wikipedia now unless if there's something like I need a map of, I don't know, Bulgaria, you know what I mean? And I just need it real quick, and Wikipedia pops up. Not that I'm looking up maps of Bulgaria, but you know what I'm saying. But but if it's something simple and it's not a big deal, I'll use Wikipedia for that minor league stuff, because that's like asking a guy on the street, which way to the nearest gas station. I don't know the guy, but I'm just going to hope that he gives me the right answer to the gas station. If he gives me the wrong answer, I'll just still find it. You know what I mean? And but when it comes to anything serious, like was Taiwan part of China, I mean, it makes a person look extremely bad to send a Wikipedia link on that. I mean, a person who's actually supposed to be a researcher, right? It makes them look very, very bad. Now, also from a research point of view, as somebody who does this all the time for decades on end, research, there should be some signals that something's wrong with the narrative with China and Taiwan, right? There should be one signal is, if it takes you more than like 5 minutes to find thousands of articles about it, with actual source documents, and we'll talk about source documents in a minute. But if it takes a long, if you can't find, if Taiwan was part of China, there would be enough books to fill up this whole room, right? You'd fill up 5 rooms like this. You wouldn't have any problem whatsoever finding huge numbers of maps and books in Dutch, of course, because the Dutch were over there at times. If anybody had a claim on Taiwan that wasn't one of the indigenous people, there was a lot of indigenous people there, that would probably be like the Dutch, or maybe even the Portuguese. It wouldn't be the Chinese. It'd probably be the Dutch, actually. I don't know if that's true, but that's probably true. But anyway, it's not the point. The point is if Taiwan were part of China, let's say Formosa was part of China, uh, there would be so much. You know how many maps that we have that are really, really old maps? I mean, I got unbelievable. You can't even pick them up. There's so many of them, right? Old stuff, right? And there's nothing in there and nobody can produce them. Nobody's been able to produce one. We talked with Professor Ishii in Nagasaki. He's a Japanese. Masako and I, we spent, I don't know, quite a bit of time with him. He just messaged a couple days ago. But Professor Ishii, he's studied this and many other topics for years. He actually understands the old characters in Mandarin, and he studied them for years. And we asked him in Nagasaki, Professor Ishii, he's down there, and he's a professor in Nagasaki, is there any old maps that China made? And he said they just mapped the west coast part of it, and they had that little town in the bottom part of Formosa, but that was just a little speck of like a freckle. That was like a village, right? There was nothing, but the Dutch did too. I mean, that was just there was nobody had governance over it. They just didn't have it. It just never happened. But again, if it had happened, if China actually had Formosa, there would be massive information on it. It would be in Dutch libraries. It would be in French and German libraries. It would be in English, of course, because the British also was going around there, and Americans were going around there. I mean, everybody was prowling around there. Spanish, Portuguese. It would be in all of their libraries about what they would have written, right? And so much of this is published out there in Spanish, Portuguese, and Dutch, and German, and French, and Japanese, and Chinese, but there's nothing at all. There's nothing. Find it, right? Again, they'll send these articles like, this was given back to China in such and such time, and therefore it used to be part of China. But actually, that's inference. That's not a source document, right? What's a source? What's an actual source as a first principle, right? Wikipedia is not that. Okay, they give you the links. Don't give me that crap. Go through there yourself. I'm not going to spend 5 days trying to teach somebody who we're going to use the Socratic method. That's why I make the bet. You have to prove it, right? And you have to prove it. The Socratic method means you have to teach yourself. You have to go through the homework yourself. And I told this one feller, I said, go through it yourself. Spend 6 months. Do it. Because when it's all over, you're going to find you're not going to find it. And then you'll make your decision whether or not you're going to double down on this, right? You know what I mean? Because you've already doubled and tripled and quadrupled and more than 10 times doubled down on it. And it's embarrassing, actually, not for me, but what I'm getting to is source documents means it's in somebody's old library, again, if it had actually been part of China, there would be massive amounts about it out there. Massive. I research all the time. I spend my nose in the books all the time. And the people that I work with are constantly researching. We know what real looks like and what fake looks like. When you can't find it, and it would have been a major deal like that, you'll have no problem showing that the Portuguese, took slaves over to Brazil. I mean, and that's why Brazil speaks Portuguese today. You'll have no problem. There's more written about that than any of us could ever read in our lifetimes, right? There's more about that, what the Spanish did in Guatemala and all these different countries. You can't possibly read it all. There's no chance. You could have the 10 strongest men in the world. They wouldn't be able to pick up all the books about what the Spanish did in Central America, or let's say Cuba even. Just pick one little place. What the French were doing on Hispaniola, right? What the French were doing in Haiti, right? You would not be able to pick up the books. There's so many. Just look for yourself. Go to the Library of Congress, French in Haiti or whatever, right? Again, so when you're doing stuff that really happened, you're not looking for scraps of paper like, well, here's a receipt, we've got here it is, here's the proof, China used to own Formosa. We got a receipt somewhere there was a McDonald's in Formosa in 1622, it's like, it's like, and that's what I'm getting to. These things that are actually real, they are, you will get avalanche and easily find massive information. That's all I wanted to say. Long-haired general prodding me in the ribs. come talk about Wikipedia, because she always hears me when people send me a Wikipedia link. I'm like, all right, I'm hitting the anti-Wikipedia missile button, because please never send me a Wikipedia link at all about anything, because I don't open them. I'm getting, I looked at my voice messages about yesterday, I think it was, and there was like 78 voice messages, right? 78, right? I'm sorry for those people that I haven't. That doesn't include email. That doesn't include messages that are coming through my Substack. And I want to answer all of those because those are paid subscribers. And those are even difficult to answer, right? Thank you for everybody who supported me financially in Masako, and, PayPal and Venmo and all those different methods and Gifts and Go. Let's do a call out right now, actually. Please sign up for my Substack. And please don't feel hurt if I didn't actually answer messages or actually even thank everybody. I try to thank everybody, but there's some that don't have email addresses and don't have any way to actually thank them, right? And like a lot of that's true, especially on PayPal and actually on Gifts and Go. A lot of people do it anonymously, and actually some on Substack too. I don't even know who to thank. And so, but thank you, huge. Thank you massively. And please understand, again, there was almost 80 voicemails. And one of the messages that I got to, this was interesting. Let me take a sip of water. This is interesting. Speaking of research, so I got a message on my voicemail, and it was a longtime reader, and so she'll probably be watching, and her husband, I hope, and they had a $80 per year subscription, right? And then they got a double charge for another $80, and so she messaged me, and luckily I listened to that one. Luckily, I just happened to hear it, and she said that the charge went to something called White Rabbit. And I'm like, White Rabbit? But it was $80, which is how much my annual subscription was. But I just increased that, by the way, because I need to. But you can see it, so when the charge comes through, you can just decline it, right? But the White Rabbit. So I called her up, and she said, yeah, it's in the credit card. Somebody gave her my number. And I'm like, well, that doesn't. And so she gave me the number, and I called up a friend of mine who's a private detective, and Al Johnson is a private detective, and he's got a Substack called Historical Detective Agency. You should read it. Read his article on silver. I called up Al. I'm like, who's this? What's going on here? Because it looked like it might be some white supremacist organization, so maybe somebody's trying to do something to make me look like I'm involved in something. Anyway, long story short, we, backtrace everything, and we can see so much instantly about who's doing this and all these sorts of things. We got so much information within like 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, you won't believe how much information we had. And the guy who actually did charge the credit card, which is not related to me, somehow she mixed my number up. Actually, it was a mix up on their side. There was zero involvement with my number or anything. It was somehow they mixed it up. Anyway, but the point was that she got her money back, but we found so much information within minutes is what I'm getting to. It was like that. I mean, we knew all about the guy, criminal record, all this stuff. You know what I mean? We had it instantly. I mean, because this looked like a fraud might be going on, right? And you see how quick that is? And so, but somebody's telling me that, Formosa used to be part of China, but I can't quite find it. But look at this. This kind of indicates it. And here's a Wikipedia link. And I'm like, hey, no. I don't have time. It's like, today I was talking with a member of parliament in the UK and serious police up in Sweden because of the massive crime going on in Sweden from these invaders, right? Just all terrible stuff. And just bombings and hand grenades and everything else. So I got all this stuff going on and some other stuff that's coming up, right? So I don't have time to play with Wikipedia stuff, right? And it's just too much. There's a war going on. So anyway, I've done my duty. I think the long-haired general should be happy because she knows how much I don't like Wikipedia. And I do value good thinking habits. Out of all the books I've read on logic when I was much younger, we were having dinner. Masako and I were having dinner and tonight, and I said, I can't think of the names of any of those logic books that I read. I can't think of a single one. But I read quite a lot on logic when I was much younger, and I used to just read physics like crazy. I even looked at a Richard Feynman video today I needed a 20-minute vacation, so I like to listen to what a physicist has to say, especially him. He was talking about Newton and doing his developing the calculus to be able to predict gravitational stuff and how they were able to predict the different things about the speed of light and using the moons of Jupiter and all this stuff. Anyway, it's fascinating stuff. But what I'm getting to is when you spend years reading books on physics and reading from scientists and mathematics for years and years and years, if you've done a good job, one thing that you have learned is good thinking processes, first principles. What do I know and what do I not know? And so Wikipedia is just a house of cards. Straight up, it was developed as a house of cards. It is a house of cards. I have people sending me AI stuff all the time. I had just like an hour ago, somebody sent me something about how they can have AI universities now that can teach children better than teachers. Hello. Like, that's a big no. That's a massive no, right? You're going to put your children in front of a screen with AI to teach them stuff? That's like zero chance on planet Earth, right? Just not going to happen. In fact, not at all. I mean, that's like Wikipedia on meth. I mean, it's like, AI stuff. And some of this AI stuff is so far off. It's just over the top. Just look up some subject that you know very well, a subject that you really have intimate knowledge of, and see if it's accurate on that. And if it is accurate, great. And if it's not accurate, I mean, that's, should be a clue, right? And so since I study quite a lot of different topics, I see stuff all the time, and I'll be like, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. Because I'm just seeing stuff, you know what I mean? And so anyway, that's it. Thank you all for everybody's support. And actually, I was going to publish something very serious today, and but it's just almost midnight. Now, I am not going to go black next week. I thought Masako and I were actually going to have to go off comms. We were going to do something, but we're not going to do it. So anyway, too bad. But so I should have comms every day, and so should Masako. Thank you, and it's about midnight. Good night from Netherlands.